Chapter 1102 of One Piece is called The Life of Kuma, and it starts off with the Bonnie pirates searching for him. They arrive on their boat to an island where the crew confirm that there might be marines there, and also tell Bonnie that they're sure Kuma is there as well. The crew then dock and jump into action ready to fight, but the marines there get ready themselves to defend, and we learn that they heard that the last city Bonnie had attacked, there were tons of injured seniors and children, which led them to believe that they're the worst of the worst. However, as we find out in the next panel, those children and seniors were originally beat up marines, changed into their new forms by Bonnie's devil fruit in order to incapacitate them. But before we get into the rest of the chapter, if you're enjoying this video, please like and subscribe, it really helps my small channel grow. Also, I've made a Patreon and it's in the description below, support me if you'd like. As Bonnie and her crew search for Kuma, we actually do see him turn around and look in their direction. But he is still adamant on not seeing her in order to keep her safe from the world government. Kuma then teleports himself out of there, thinking to himself that he can't believe she became a pirate, but she also mustn't chase after him. Bonnie and her crew are now back on the ship, complain that they didn't find him. But since they already are branded as pirates, then they may as well keep searching for him no matter how long it takes. Bonnie then tells her crewmates that if they're going to take it slow, then she wants to look for Nika too, and imagines her dad being thrilled at her finding Nika. But before we continue this throughline, we switch to Luffy meanwhile in the East Blue, just after having crushed the Arlong pirates and gaining a 30 million berry bounty. And I absolutely adore this flashback more and more because it's so nostalgic, seeing the events around the world during pre-time skip, but from other people's perspective is just such a nice homage to the journey we've taken so far. The narrator then lets us know that this is the time Luffy has just stepped into the spotlight, and we switch to Sabo and Dragon, who's going to Logtown for no particular reason. And then we see Ace beaming at Jinbei holding up Luffy's first bounty poster, and Jinbei is particularly surprised that he beat Arlong. Even Kuma is fascinated, saying to himself that it's a twist of fate Dragon's son also became a pirate. We move back to Bonnie and her crew chanting their new piracy rules, plundering from bad guys and helping no one unless they need to, which is pretty much Luffy's unspoken rule as well. Bonnie, now using her powers to make herself appear older, puts on lipstick and uses that famed jewel ring where her scale marks used to be, in order to make sure Kuma can recognize her in her older form. Now back to Egghead, not the present day unfortunately, we're still in the flashback. We see Kuma walking down the halls, unsettled seeing his robotic clones as Vegapunk talks about their progress. Vegapunk also comments that there's some rookies who have declared war on the world government, and Kuma, knowing who they are, tells Vegapunk that the rookie is Dragon's son, and Vegapunk is left dumbfounded, but since Kuma is having his memories studied by him, he just can't hide it. He also comments on the quirk of fate that's occurring, a strange man with rubber powers standing up to the world government, and relates Luffy to his idol Nika. We then suddenly move on to Thriller Bark now, where Kuma is confronting the Straw Hats after their fight with Gecko Moria. He asks them to hand Luffy over, but dedicated to their captain back then, just as they are now, they refuse. Kuma gloomily calls it a shame and uses his power to blow up the immediate area. And Kuma now stands over Zoro, who is still defiant, calling Luffy king of the pirates. The scene plays out in short just like when it did back in Thriller Bark, but this time we hear Kuma's thoughts, who comments on how that much pain could knock even him out. Now, standing at the edge of Thriller Bark, he mentions to himself that Luffy has exceptional friends and it's just as expected from Dragon's son. The scene then moves to the other time Kuma and the Straw Hats met on the fateful day at Sabaody Archipelago. Kuma is called into mandatory action by the world government, where we see him learning the news that Ace's execution will be set, and this will result in a war with the Whitebeards. Kuma confirms that he will in fact be there. Now we return to the town on the island where we first saw Bonnie eating. We see her again eating her food, and Kuma is actually sneaking outside, peering in through the windows. He thinks that this will be the last time he sees her face, and tells her in his head to become an indomitable pirate, and then leaves. Kuma, now in the same area as the human auction, learns that someone just hit a celestial dragon, and he sneaks onto the roof confused at why someone would do that since it's a huge taboo, and since they're so close to a Navy HQ, it's basically sewer slide. But he sees them again, the Straw Hats, and he sees the Celestial Dragon knocked out, and as these Straw Hats stand there boldly and proudly, Kuma is in awe that they did it to protect a fishman, which no one has done anything this bold in hundreds of years. Now at the final battle of Sabaody Archipelago, we see the events that took place that changed the course of the series from Kuma's perspective this time, and he confronts the Straw Hats and vanishes them away. He asks Eva and Dragon for forgiveness, saying he didn't mean to desert them, but at least he can leave his silent mark on the world through this boy and his daughter Bonnie. This will be his legacy. As Luffy cries and wails at the loss of his crew, we learn Kuma's thoughts. He thinks to himself that Luffy is wrong. He's just showing him that the level Luffy has to reach in order to survive the new world. The crew shouldn't go there just yet until they're stronger, since someday they will in fact save the world. And back at Egghead, no, not the present, still in the flashback, we hear Vegapunk furious at being told to install a self-destruct mechanism into Kuma, asking if they're that afraid of him. Them being Saturn and the rest of the Gorosei. He responds ordering Vegapunk not to complain and says that this was his doing anyway. Vegapunk responds saying that the Gorosei already have the highest command chips, but Saturn isn't having it and asks if he goes rogue without them there, what could happen. This was rhetorical as Saturn states he doesn't want an answer, and he's not interested in a scientist of higher's opinion. Vegapunk tries to continue negotiating, asking if he could keep a touch of Kuma's ego in exchange, a new circuit that can switch between the states of being. But Saturn reiterates that he's already given the order. Kuma's individuality needs to be erased, not a trace must remain, and since Saturn is also a man of science, he will also see through any deceptions. Vegapunk tries to complain, saying that Kuma will never get to reunite with Bonnie because of that, but the transmission is cut off. Kuma, having heard it all, compliments him, saying it's nice to know how he feels. And Vegapunk is surprised, but Kuma reminds him he's the one who gave him superhuman hearing. Vegapunk now states that today's the day they'll erase his humanity, and says to Kuma that it was fun over the last 2 years. Vegapunk says that his first assignment is to battle the Whitebeard pirates, and Kuma jumps in saying there's something he'd like to have programmed into him to do, and it's the order to protect the ship of the Straw Hats. He'd like to be the guardian for their home since he won't be able to witness their growth. Vegapunk asks him what future he is dreaming up for the boy, and Kuma responds saying Nika may only be a legend, but if there is a hero out there who will change the seas one day, it will be him, Luffy. Vegapunk compliments his way of thinking, saying that it's proof of his humanity. But they have to continue the operation, and Vegapunk asks Kuma to push out his memories for his research. Vegapunk asks though if it erases his memories, but Kuma states it's only a copy, however it will disappear when touched. But Vegapunk reassures him, saying that he's developed a system that will allow him to peek into it without touching it. Vegapunk however is visibly shaken now at the thought of erasing Kuma's individuality, and he calms himself down by telling himself it's just another procedure. Kuma seems content however, smiling and wonders how many people have been troubled by his actions. But Vegapunk responds stating that living is nothing without trouble. The flashback eventually fades as we see Kuma's life flash before his eyes. He runs through them all, seeing his memories. He sees his mother and father, then Eva and Ginny. As he continues to run, older now, he sees Dragon, his church friends, and adult Ginny. And he's still running, seeing young Bonnie and now Vegapunk. And as he runs off into the distance, we return to the lab with Vegapunk in tears, shouting that Kuma's life hasn't caused anyone harm or trouble, but his death will pain everyone who loved him. That Kuma is a hero, not only for Bonnie, but everyone he's ever met. Kuma thanks him, asking for one last thing, but Vegapunk says yeah he knows, and he pulls the switch. Everyone who had been watching stands in silence. Vegapunk continues to cry and falls to his knees as Kuma's final words echo throughout. He thanks everyone for saving Bonnie, and as his mind switches off, we return back to the present where Bonnie sits after just touching the bubble that contained his memories. He asks Vegapunk to please wish her a happy 10th birthday. and the chapter ends with the last panel, that of Bonnie sobbing uncontrollably. Oh, now you probably want me to say some final words and go over the chapter, but I genuinely have no words. I think this has been the one backstory that has fully made me weep whilst writing the script. It was done just so beautifully, unlike anything I've read in One Piece before. In fact, maybe anything I've read, period. The way he was running through his memories and how everyone cared for him so much, especially Vegapunk, was so powerful. Anyway, the video's over because I'm done crying. It's now coming to the end of the video, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I'm so happy you stopped by. My channel is steadily growing and I'm amazed at the support I'm getting. And I also have a Patreon now, so feel free to support me however you like. The link will be in the description, and I will shout out names at the end of each video. Thank you again, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.